It's rice, Boy said, holding out a bowl of something. Rice, one presumes. I know what rice is, Zapper, the prisoner said. Hey, did you just say, I know what rice is, Zapper? And you said, it's rice in Spanish. Your meat man made you give up your old throats then. I don't really know, but I can hear you. What do you say? I'm speaking Spanish. It's old cosmic magic. But I'm not thinking any different. I'm just saying things in Tindril, ain't I? I don't know what you're saying, only what I'm hearing. But the silent stones work on your ears as well. Gotta go your whole life without being captured to know what the real world sounds like. Not your first time being captured then. Didn't purge my old throat by choice, did I? I dunno. You seem pretty different to what I thought. What did you think, Zapper? Thought you'd be all grunting and bleeding and blinding and, you know, monster stuff. All Zappers think that. What's a Zapper, then? The prisoner pointed at Boy. Alright, should have known, shouldn't I? Never heard that? Sheltered like nothing else. Surprised you ever left a flat cave. What? I think this throat thing's still getting used to things, but bits know the sum of it. I don't know what you've been up to, but I got some questions for you. What's the name, for starters? Comeriero. The wall. Right. I'm Boy. The child. Don't you start, it's a long story. It seems the cosmic people magic allowed Boy and Comeriero there to get chatting, with Boy eager to find out what trouble they could expect from the Tranca Union. Comeriero spilled the beans without much pressuring, telling of a village a couple of days' walk east in the lowlands. You seem like a reasonable bloke. Why were you coming at us like that? Boy asked. If you really are from another world, what use would there be explaining it? I failed, so my story ends. There will be no ill will if you kill me, Zapper Boy. In fact, if your kindness extends that far, I request it. Hold your horseshoes. You know what I want here, don't you? Your mates are gonna kill us any day now. If you get the heat off us, we can make a deal and you'll go free, right? Comeriero hung his head and said nothing, even after a few more questions from Boy. Then there was a tumbling sound from the shed next door, followed rapidly by Lady thrusting her head into the doorway. Boy, quickly! You have to hear this, she said, disappearing again before any reply could be given. Think carefully, man, Boy said in parting to the prisoner, bolting the door closed as he moved over to the staves shed. There he saw the setup mentioned previously, with the handle piped into a strange cosmic rod. Staves was holding said rod with trembling hands. It's in here, he managed to say to Boy. You what? Just listen, Boy, Lady said, getting to work on the handle. The thing began cycling through the same series of strange noises as before. What am I listening to here? Boy asked. Wait, Lady barked. The noises carried on until the all-important one. Hello! If you speak one bastion, please reply yes. Yeah, what's it to you? Boy replied. You have selected one bastion. Fantastic, the rod said. Staves fell to the ground and clasped his hands together. Lady closed her eyes and kept pushing away on the generator handle. What are you doing? Boy asked of them. It's the Overlord, isn't it? Lady said. Overlord? That sounds like a wonk to me. You think the Overlord isn't a wonk? Oh, when you put it like that. Boy was cut off by the rod beginning to speak again. Data files found. One bastion. Ha! Blasted old language, that. You must be a proper bunch of outcasts then, eh? I haven't heard those effing and essing chaps since my old grandfather's portfolio. What a time it must have been. Oh my, I'm getting off topic. You see... Are you the Overlord? Boy asked, but the voice didn't react, carrying on as before. Not really a better way to understand it, so forgive the technicalities. I suppose it's not impossible that you'll still remember silence. Well, maybe not, or they wouldn't even broadcast this message. What? Fine, I'll get on with it.
Sorry, just a blast from the past with one bastion. It's rather fun to speak, you know. I know. Well, they won't know that, will they? Blasted. Right, hello again. Apologies. If you could hear this message, you are almost certainly going to die. But that's where I come in. This message is an automated broadcast from your planet's Emergency Exit Strategy Center, and clearly the emergency has been declared. So, if you get this, you need to get over here and get your hands in. You might not have much time, so don't dally about it. You'll find your radio will detect positioning data from the launch site, which you can use, along with your own local maps, to navigate to the relevant point. Bloody Garfield, I hope you one Bastion nuts still know about radios. That's all I know, really. You probably know more about it than me, don't you? Whatever apocalypse is going on there, I do wish you the best of luck. And as I said, we're waiting for you to evacuate. There's always another Rimworld, as they say. Oh, I feel terrible for all this. That's it then, isn't it? What's next then? Frentalian? No one in the bloody blasted universe still speaks Frentalian. What? I keep forgetting the button.
And there you go. That's what the Almighty had to say. You might be a little confused, but spare a thought for poor Staves, boy and lady, who were entirely convinced that the Master of the Universe had just said all that guff. But it wasn't all lost on them. Bits spoke of a hilocat, didn't it? It was telling us to go somewhere and find it, Boy reasoned after a long silence indicated no more would be said. Yeah, it said to go somewhere because of danger, Lady confirmed. She was still spinning the handle, just to be sure. I knew it! Griffin must have heard it too, somehow. That's what's all going on here, isn't it? Boy said, jumping around the shed. What are we supposed to do, though? What it said! We have to save Pieces! Pieces? I thought it meant this world. Why would it mean that? And it's all the same, isn't it, if there's a hilocat here? This is part of the Pieces. Right, what did it say? You got it, didn't you, lady? Yeah, it said, you'll find your radio will detect positioning data from the launch site. What's a radio? No idea. Positioning data? Like using the sun to get course or something. And a launch site. A catapult? Bloody bits, we need a priest here, don't we? Wonk, get up! Boy shouted, pulling Staves up from his knees. What's all this about? Tell us! Forbidden magic, he whispered. It's the Overlord, this ain't forbidden magic. Yes it is. Radio. Radio's an old word. I think it's this. Staves picked up the cosmic rod and looked it over. Yes, it actually was a radio, as Staves was recalling. He'd read of certain mystical machines from times long gone, and the machine that read words aloud by magic must have been something like this rod. And more than that, it was a direction finder for soon-to-be-dead colonists. But that tidbit hadn't made it into Castle Griffin's black box of forbidden tomes. The rod didn't say anything else after that, no matter how much sweat was seeped at the magic handle. All it would do was beep occasionally and display readouts on its glass panels. According to Staves, it was just a series of numbers and letters with no meaning, which did wonders for building anxiety over a purported end of the world sneaking up on them. Lady reassured herself by memorizing the numbers. Boy reassured himself by getting as many crops stowed away as possible, and Staves preferred to share Cannibal's view on the matter, to leave pesky things like the apocalypse until after dinner. Really, things carried on quite well, but this awareness that the Almighty was up to something made even the smallest inconvenience seem like the beginning of the end. For example, when a frothing raccoon hissed at Staves, beginning of the end. Or when Comeriero became quite ill and didn't want to spill any beans other than those his stomach ejected, beginning of the end perhaps. Or when there was a huge, slow solar eclipse, turning day to night for a good 50 hours. Well okay, this is starting to sound like the beginning of the end, I will admit, but for a well-stocked enclave like 3 Up Fort, it was all just bumps in the road. No, on Reticot, The real end came when someone decided to kill you, which happened about 5 days after the Cosmic Rod revelation. Coincidence? No, actually. "Well, well, it's my lucky day," a strange woman said at the door of the barn. She was entering a shack that stunk of vomit, and were it not for the stifling darkness of midday under the eclipse, she'd have seen a nude, grimacing man, stained with the remains of a half-dozen rejected bowls of boiled rice. "It's always nice when the primitives start playing with radios," the woman said, squeezing through the door and holding her nose. "We can all listen in, darling. Orbital locked onto you right away. They said you weren't worth it, but here you are, a slave freshly fallen from a tree. Now let's get you wrapped up." The woman began tying a length of cloth around Comeriero's mouth, but then there was a pattering at the door. Even the smell of the vom, stewed by the heat of fading summer, was not enough to fool the sniffer of Cannibal. She smelled a large woman with a metal helmet, charwood chestplate, and stained leather suit, and sure enough, here she was. With a single bark, Staves was in the doorway too, with rifle in hand. "Bloody mutts, I thought you lot ate them all," the woman protested. She pulled a length of wood from her coat with something metal gleaming on the end and brandished it. Staves levelled his rifle with his signature kick of the butt and fired without so much as a blink. The shot clacked into the woman's wooden chestplate. She tried to bring her weapon down on Cannibal, but Cannibal had lunged forward and sunk her teeth into some tasty exposed shins, causing the weapon to fall long. "Orbital, help!" she called out. Whatever it meant, Staves had already flicked the bolt on the rifle and was pulling the trigger again. The weapon clicked. Staves pulled the bolt back again, while the woman tried to swing at him with her stick and kick Cannibal away at the same time, causing her to stumble off balance. Peering into the thunderhole, Staves saw no more of the shiny brass tubes that the bolt action usually moved around inside the thing. But thanks to the wisdom of the tribes, he knew precisely what to do. Taking a step back, he pulled the rifle back over his shoulder, then flung it full pelt into the woman's face. A bolt-action rifle weighs at least 5 kilos, so to us we might imagine having a couple of bottles of your favourite brand of cola slam into our faces at once. More than enough to have this intruder crashing to the ground. Cannibal kept her teeth in place as Staves put a foot on her chest. "If I leave you alive, will you tell us stuff?" he asked. "I'll tell you now, primitive, that Orbital's gonna make you regret the day you were born." "Is that all you'll tell us?" "Shut up! You can make me your slave, but the Eaters will rescue me, sooner or later." "Right. One moment." Staves carefully unbuttoned a chest pocket, difficult in the dark, and slid out a black box. He whacked his fist on the side of the rifle magazine until it thudded into the mud, then clicked the box into place. "Wait, hang on," the woman said as Staves put the rifle in her face. He pulled the trigger, but it just clicked. "Oh, sorry," he said. He pulled the bolt action back, peering into the hole to watch a thunder tube get hooked up into the barrel. Sliding the action forward pushed it in front of the clicking pin. Not the usual ceremony, but sure enough, when Staves pulled the trigger this time, it made short work of the woman's neck. She stopped struggling, although Cannibal kept angrily gnawing at her shin. It was then that Boy once again arrived on the scene to find Staves dusting his hands of another murder. Staves quickly told Boy. "She already said everything she knew." "What in the pits is going on? Who's that?" Boy asked. "Good question." "She was talking to a god called Orbital, and she said her friends are going to kill us later. That's all." "Doesn't sound like bloody all, does it?" "Well, it is," Staves insisted, pointing at the rancid mess of assorted bodily fluids on the floor. "Glad I didn't get to live in that hollow-shadowed castle in the end," Boy muttered to himself, stepping over to Comeriero and pulling him away from the worst of it. "Pirates," Comeriero managed to say. "What's that?" Boy asked. "Eaters. She is a pirate. Worst of the Zappers. Kote warriors. Kote." With this his words turned into groans instead. Come on, clearly this ain't no place for anyone, Boy said, hauling Comariero onto his shoulders with surprising ease, and carefully treading around the mess to escape. Staves whistled to Cannibal, and she finally let go of the dead attacker. The dead pirate, apparently. Walkie's time then, he said, at once flipping Cannibal's mood. Meanwhile, Boy took Comariero to the main hall. It was lighter inside than outside, on account of a blowwork fireball placed on a plastic stand in the middle of the room, with pipes running out to a stocky metal windmill beside the door. This experimental machination was the start of something more impressive than this generally still quite depressing scene, but we'll return to that later. The light helped Boy tie Comariero to the wall, leaving various cleaning implements for him in reach. Then he busied himself in the kitchen and returned with a bowl of dry mashed potatoes. It was no fun to eat, but unlike that slippery rice, it didn't bounce off Comariero's stomach. So, sorry about all that, Boy eventually said, sitting at a table across the room from the prisoner. Such are the times, Comariero said. Don't mind me asking, but was my, workmate, you know, the fat guy, was what he was saying correct? She is an eater of gore. Was. Pirates from the cosmos who walk among us. Pirates of what? They're much to take here. Lives. They are agents of the Cote. Yeah, about that. Not the first time I've heard that word. You know it. Of course. It is the end. It is a word from before the Zappers. It means roll up. Like the beginning made Reticot, the end returns it to the wheel. Death ceases to matter. Comariero now tilted over and lay on the floor, holding his stomach. Boy felt like he could do the same when he realized what was happening. The locals of Reticot were already clued in about the world ending, and the Overlord had told the crew the same thing. There was no denying that everyone was in big trouble now. As it happened, they were in big trouble whether either religious prophecy had any merit or not. As on a Rimworld, it's pretty much always one loose wire away from apocalypse. Is there any way to stop it? Boy eventually asked. Comariero shook his head in reply. What if there's a way to escape? Boy fished. Go to the cosmos. The Eaters of Gore will take you, as a slave, to Orbital. The endless hell, Comariero said, smiling for some reason. What's that Orbital? A god, is it? A punishment. They will take you there one day. I doubt that. Our madman will kill them all given half the chance. You can believe that will save you. But the Cote already started. Zappers will die first. Zappers and whatever you are. Cheerful, aren't you? I've made my mark. What's that mean? Means you are wasting your time giving me your mud nuggets. Mud nuggets? You call them mud nuggets? That is what they are. You better hope these egg magic things are translating that wrong. You sound like a right muppet. What's a muppet? I don't know. It's your language. Don't ask me what the words mean. I'm just saying them somehow. It all twists up in the end, Comariero said, with another smile. Right. Well, got more mud nuggets to mash, Boy said, getting back to work. All this transpired on the first day of Reticot's autumn season. Just as a reminder, the planet's years were only 60 days long, engineered thousands of quote-unquote years ago to maximize the productivity of the carefully crafted ecosystem. This was all perfectly normal to the gang, as Pieces was designed in the same fashion, not that they understood it on that level. It meant that Boy and Lady could act on autopilot, carrying out harvests, collecting useful plants and firewood, and sizing up the angle of the sun to guess what winter climate they'd be getting. Meanwhile, Staves was convinced to clean the barn for Cannibal's sake, then got back to work in the good old shed. Now said shed was starting to get a bit chilly of a morning with the fading of summer. while on the other hand, the larder at the mountain's edge was getting too hot under its corrugated steel roof, causing Boy's precious corn to decompose. The prospect of freezing and/or starving was nothing new to the residents of rural Tindra, and usually one relied upon a burning passion for the Overlord and a sustaining regimen of prayer to get through it. But the Cosmic People magic offered a different solution. 3-Up Fort was just a little more wonkery away from a few mod cons. The world might be ending by roll up or by the bits, but the Blowwork Revolution was gonna make it a far more pleasant experience. Almost every strange box, gizmo and whirligig in the leftovers of the colony kit did something if you blew on it hard enough. And to clarify, I mean if you piped in something that was blown upon. If you want even more modern language, you could call it electricity, but that hardly describes what was happening here. The point is, this discovery made all the pictograms that came with the kit make a lot more sense. The lightning bolt symbols meant blowwork for some reason, and all the diagrams for assembling little strings together was actually to do with the blowwork pipes. These pipes could be drawn out from raw metal using the magical quill tools, and those things could do a lot more if you dared twiddle the settings. Big pipes that carried blowwork from one room to another, and tiny pipes that glowed hot when the blowwork squeezed through them. With these discoveries in hand, burnt hand, Staves came from his shed at the beginning of winter to blow the foul chills away. Well, actually he just stood in the doorway and told Lady his idea. Make piles and piles of hot glowing pipes and use them like a never-ending campfire. Lady was eager to give it a go, and once she'd been successfully initiated into the Burnt Hands Club, a few blocks of these wires, pipes, were cooking the colony up nicely. Comeriero was made to bathe in the endless red aura they gave off during the night. This at first sunk him into a deeper acceptance of his doom, but he couldn't help but relive memories of his long years at various fire pits among the Tranca, tending the burning heart of the communities that had since sent him to his preordained death. Seeing the glow of the Cosmic People magic, and witnessing the relief and joy it brought to his captors, shrunk the gap between the worlds of Zappa magic and the nobbly real world. Furthermore, he could enjoy a certain smugness whenever Boy's mud nuggets were served for dinner. Seeing Lady and Staves cringe as they shoveled the gravel-like mash into their quivering mouths told him all he needed to know about the superiority of Tranca cuisine. This almost made the fact he had to eat the stuff himself bearable. On the topic of food, Lady managed to save the colony from eating the only thing worse than quasi-mashed, quasi-cleaned mud nuggets: nothing. She did so by discovering a secret function of a device Staves had dubbed the Squelch Box. The wonk names things superbly. This box made occasional squelching sounds if you piped a great deal of blowwork into it. Once Cannibal got bored of barking at it, Staves concluded it had no function and kicked it under the desk. But Lady had a strange tendency to sneak into the Staves shed once he was out frolicking with the forest creatures. This led to an incident where she was trapped under the table when Staves unexpectedly came back with another mega sheep for his flock. Lady ended up staying under that table for a few hours while Staves gradually explained all the discoveries he had made so far to the mega sheep. The point of this story is that she idly inspected the Squelch Box and found dials beneath a detachable panel. One dial allowed you to select between a picture of a fire and a picture of a pointy circular leaf. Later secret experiments revealed the box's circular leaf mode caused the squelching to intensify greatly, cold air to seep from slits in one side, and warm air from corresponding slits in the other. It was a refrigerator. It was a frigid squelch box. It was whatever you wanted to call it, but it came in mighty useful as a way to both freeze the larder and heat the adjoining kitchen. That meant Boy's precious harvest could keep it together well into the next year without any fancy salting or pickling. The Mud Nugget menu extended as far as wincing eyes could see. The Megasheep didn't mind eating them, and they gave something in return. Boy taught Staves how to shear their endless locks off, netting the gang some parasite-ridden piles of usable wool. Lady had to think back a long way to her earliest days as a slave, when a lady named Missy, sister of her owner, had taught her to weave wool into sheets. With no more farming to attend to, that became her job. A couple of days before first frost, the crew all wore extremely rough, uneven cloaks of bluish fur. As for Camariero, he remained officially naked on Boy's orders. But given his extremely calm and stoic disposition, it became increasingly awkward feeling to have him tied to the wall and sleeping in the corner like a mad beast. "Here, Camarero," Lady said, handing the prisoner a gappy woolen quilt. "Camariero, you have my thanks, Lady of the Cave," Camariero said, quickly pulling it around himself. You shouldn't stay here. Is there any way you could tell the Tranca Union to leave us alone?" "No one can tell them that. The end is here. To hasten the Kote is a duty. You could never understand." "I might. I mean, I know the end is coming, but we're going to help. There's a holy place here, and if we find it, we'll have the salvation of the Overlord." "Nonsense. The roll-up is a good thing. That is how suffering ends. A better world will come after. I've already said that anyway."
"Well, okay, but is there nothing we can do to work together?"
"Both of us should die. That will hurry along the new world."
"Oh."
"But we are not dead. Perhaps we both should be. But it seems you are all the last of your people."
They might be alive, and we can still go back. Actually, never mind."
"We were sent to do important work, but we found ourselves here, unable to go forward or back. Such flat time for a flat cave. But you are kind and pure, leaving aside your meat man. The Zappers will come to hate you for that. A twist up beyond the rhymes of the 100 Tellers." After saying this, Camariero twisted himself up in the quilt and grinned. Lady excused herself awkwardly and left the hall. From the other side of the closed door to the kitchen across the room, Boy let out a long breath and reminded himself that Lord Griffin must be alive somewhere. To have foreseen the importance of the crusade was a sign of power and destiny. So he imagined, as further along the mountains, bramble stalks were already starting to cover the remains of the drop pods. The coming of winter was evidenced by the clear fading of life in the forests. Creatures disappeared to burrows or the warmer lands to the north. But some saw that the 3-Up Fort crew had a good thing going. A few husky dogs wandered into camp one day, finding Staves and Cannibal to have the right kind of whiff. The feeling was mutual apparently, as the dogs were added to Staves' collection of critters in the barn, at his literal beck and call within days. The animal population of the fort now far exceeded the human one, which wasn't the best news when it came to production of food. However, there were humans too that were drawn to the comforts of the flat cave, as Camariero called it, albeit drawn by fate rather than foresight. I'm talking about a new drop pod that fell right outside the fort's wall. Right outside the fort's wall was a series of rocks, this being a mountainside, and the pod's parachutes weren't enough to stop the impact shattering the metal shell. Boy ran out to investigate the booming sound this produced, and found a pile of broken metal and rock wreathed in smoke. This was the packaging for their winter gift, a comatose man with tall, pointy pillars of hair on an otherwise bald head, like a hunting forest. He wore a tight-fitting black vest with dull metal clasps, which on its shoulder strap had a red embroidering shaped like a skull. It was the same pattern that the woman who had come to steal Comeriero had worn.
Orbital. It's real, Staves concluded at once when he saw it.
Yeah. You gonna help? Boy huffed as he dragged the limp man into the hall. He already knew the answer there, of course. Comeriero helped by commenting, "An eater. Time is running out." Yes, this pointy fellow was another eater of gore. The pirates that were supposedly out to bring about the end of the world, falling from the cosmos to wreak havoc. Space pirates they were. And yes, Orbital was real, albeit not as a deity, but a home to many more of these eaters. This eater, though, was dumped in a new home, and at the fall of winter remained unconscious in the messy workshop Lady had set up beside the main hall, littered with loose rocks, wasted megasheep wool, and the blood seeping from the pirate's roughly bandaged cuts.
I think I can kill him without using the thunder tubes, Staves explained.
He was thinking economically, but the others weren't impressed. "Don't kill him, Wonk. He's under the human pet rules, okay?" Boy said.
He isn't going to tell you anything. He came here to kill us. The last one I killed told us that.
At this, Lady decided to quit the meeting, which enraged Boy. "Wonk, you need to tie yourself up good and proper. We aren't here to kill everyone. We have a duty to find the hilocat and answer the summons of the Overlord. We can't have war. If he wakes up, we'll see what he has to say. We gotta know what that orbital is. For all we know, that's a clue for us, isn't it?
Or he's gonna kill us."
"Stop talking about killing! You're obsessed!"
"I don't mind not killing him. I was just trying to save you having to do it, since you aren't that brave."
I pray I find another Wonk just to be rid of you!" Boy shouted, also quitting the meeting. The meeting was now just Staves at the table, and Comeriero squatting in the corner as always.
"Not very nice," Staves commented as Boy disappeared around the door.
"Meat man, I think you are the wrong song for the occasion," Comeriero said. Staves calmly marched over to him, then replied,
"Do you know what we should do?"
"Asking me is the wrong song too."
"If you're telling me not to do what you say, that's not logical."
"And they say I've had too many days by the fire."
"Who says that?"
"People. People who talk of serving the Kote, but never raise their bows. Years by the fire I might have enjoyed, but I followed my path. I was ready to die, as sure as you are ready to kill, meat man."
"So you're not ready to die now?"
"I am already dead, in the lines the Tranker will hear. And I have indeed passed into a new world, haven't I? The flat caves. We had always thought them so different, but there is so much alike too. They are caves. That is what I am beginning to realize. With your new visitor, I feel a certain sign is being given. We are all lost, but lost here in this flat cave of yours. The world outside is ending, but everything here is fresh and new. Most of all, the talk of salvation. That is the freshest sound on Retikot. A new kind of cave, here around this new kind of fire. Was it always like this for the Zappers? I cannot help but wonder what I have not heard. Even you are a maze of thorns wrapped around a gusting hill."
"Do you love me?"
Staves abruptly asked. "That's a strange question, meat man. Did your new throat run into trouble?"
"I need to know. People at home used to love me. Boy thinks Lady loves me, but she said she didn't. So something's happening. What about you?"
"Straightforward. You talk like you kill. That is admirable, some would say. You remind me of what people wanted me to be 200 years ago. I didn't like what I imagined, so I disappointed them. For the same reason, I cannot say I like you. Love needn't enter the discussion."
"Okay, thanks. That's helpful."
"Now helpful. That's what I really wish to be. We would work well together, even as enemies."
"Is that what you want?" It is how my wants have changed. Denied death, denied life. What can you give me? I liked you when we first talked. Now, I like you more. I think it's a good thing that we spared you. Maybe boy and lady will think that too, if I tell them. I want to know as much as you, meat man. Are you willing to try? Promise you'll tell me about love. You are unstoppable. This is more than the calling of an old throat. I will do your twisted bidding, lost one. Staves went off and brought the other two back to the hall, explaining how Comeriero was actually a nice guy and that he might act even nicer if he wasn't naked and tied to the wall. Lady had no clue what the right course was and pushed her vote off onto Boy. Boy had no clue either, but deferring to Staves was a route into madness, so instead he grilled Comeriero on his life in Tranca. It became increasingly clear that this life was ended without his input, as a kind of punishment. A punishment for pointing out the hypocrisy of rulers who claimed to be warriors but refused to fight. Now that he had failed to arrange his own execution in service of the end times, it was like he had passed into a new life, as he said. But that was all very high and mighty. Boy decided to take another approach. You've talked a lot of talk, but can you put your mash where your mouth is? Boy asked. So you wish to learn the secrets of mud nuggets? Comeriero beamed. You will never be able to go back after you taste my work, just as I cannot return after all this. This cryptic remark turned into a demonstration of high-quality mud nuggetry that left mouths not only undamaged, but positively excited about the prospect of further nourishment, the essence of fine dining indeed. Comeriero was a cook by trade, and so like the others he began doing what he knew best, following routines in a new and wild life. With clothes on too, so he was moving up in the world. Would he live to see tomorrow? Would any of them? The routine helped put these questions to bed. That said, with the coming of winter, the routine for boy and lady was changing rapidly. The fields were rested, and the two carried on into classic rural winter pastimes, such as being cold, and rural winter work, making bricks from stone. Chiseling a granite brick takes a while, but the cosmic people tools could help with that. Their chisels blasted stone away with the lightest touches, so shaving out brick after brick from the mountainside's bounty was quite easy. In no time at all, the pair piled up enough bricks to turn their little fort into a less little castle. The bricks were used to make an outer wall beyond the wooden perimeter, enclosing fields with a good 5 feet of stone. As you might be thinking, that's not really high enough to stop a determined assault streaker, but they were lacking for an affixing medium to shore the wall up with. If they'd followed the old Raccoona tradition and used mud bricks, then riverside clay might have sufficed. But with granite, you needed some serious glue to stop the weight up top tearing the whole thing down in the wind. Where were they going to find something like that? Well, it just so happens that the colony kit contained a couple of sacks full of a dusty grey spice. Not much of a spice, really, for it made Boy's rice taste like gravel, more so than usual at least. I mention all this in preparation for the return to the world of the living for the spiky man who fell from the cosmos, from a life where people weren't eating cement mix for breakfast. What the? Where's that useless lump of butternut? The man said when his surroundings made it as far as his consciousness. In reality, this sounded like a bunch of slurred syllables, but don't worry, he was speaking a translatable language. He was just rather concussed, so give him a break. The noises he was making, especially when he realized he was tied to a big rock, attracted the attention of the other colonists. He was being held in the messy workshop, lit by a buzzing fireball sucking on a pipe snaking from the door to the narrow room's center. It smelled like a bunch of dogs had been marking their territory around him. For the man, It was a little better than he'd expected of a Rimworld. "Mate, you know where you are?" Boy asked him as he entered. "Nope, but I bet I can guess. Pantry, isn't it?" the man replied sullenly. "Pantry? How's that then?" "Cupboard's bare, and here I am. I know how it is." "Oh, not sure I know how it is though." "You gotta eat me, don't ya?" "Don't you start with that," Boy protested, but it was too late. "He said we could eat him," Staves insisted at the door, but Boy shut him out. "We're not gonna eat you, stranger, but you've got to explain why you're marked up like an eater of gore. Orbital sent you, didn't he?" "Not he, but I'm from Orbital, yeah." "And you're here to kill us?" "Kinda, yeah." "Kinda? Well, I mean, I was gonna help out with some kind of botched job. Now I'm the botched job, ain't I? Don't even remember losing to you. You blew up on the way down, Cosmic Wonk. And what about the big girl I was meant to be meeting? You ate her?" "We didn't eat anyone. Get that in your head, alright. But she came in and got handsy, so my captain of the guard, he gave her a good seeing to. Dunno what you're saying, but it don't translate to anything clear, butter. We killed her, mate. Thought as much, butter." "Sounds like we're on the same page then, mate. You know about books down here," the man said, suddenly appearing more interested. "Where do you think you are?" "Rimworld. They're usually worse than this. Only been to a couple though. First tour for me." To skip the explanation, the pirate explained that his band went from world to world gathering resources in an entirely businesslike and polite manner, and then moving on before anyone got any bright ideas about stopping them. "Wait, how many worlds are there?" Boy asked. "Can't say really. 1,000? "By the bits. That's a lot of bits." "Lot of what?" "Lady!" Boy called, immediately leaving. Later the same day he returned with Lady in tow. She held a book from the colony kit, written in an unknown cipher. "Oh, Frentalian! What are the chances?" the man cheered, rummaging through the pages like an unearthed treasure. "What does it say?" Lady asked. "It's about Earth, I think." "About mud? It's just a farming manual," Lady sighed, ready to turn away. "Wait, you don't even know about Earth?" the man balked. "We know about everything there is to know about Earth, okay?" Boy lectured. "And you, by the way, are still in trouble here, mate. We've been trying to decide if we feed you to the weird guy peeking in through the door over there, or if you might just be what we're looking for." "What are you looking for, butter?" "You know about the hilocats?" "Not a clue." "Wait, you don't even know about the hilocats?" Lady mocked. "Alright, leave it out, little miss. Leave her alone, she's my sister." Boy pouted. "Good for you. Got it all, don't ya? So what's the verdict? You got me. Looks like I'm out of a job. You gotta let me go, or finish me off right here. Right, butter?" "We'll see," Boy muttered. "We gotta eat some regular food first. I'll bring you some. Then you'll tell me everything." With this, Boy moved to the other side of the workshop and hauled a bag of grey spice over his shoulder. "You're gonna eat that?" the pirate smirked. "Got a better idea, spaceman?" Boy shot back. "Yeah, I do actually." The story from here is very embarrassing, especially for Master Chef Boy. So to summarise, the Space Wonk explained that maybe some of the exotic spices had better applications in creating building mortar, which suddenly made all the pictograms on the bag a lot less mysterious. That wasn't a mouth the arrow was pointing to, but a toothy cement mixer. "Want me to mix it for you? Since you said you'd feed me," the pirate offered. Boy stalled, but Lady had no hesitation. "You owe us your life, Space Wonk. You have to do what we say." "Fine. By the way, I'm not called Space Wonk. It's Tumas," the pirate said. Maybe he wasn't a pirate anymore. What he was, in that quiet winter flat cave, was a decent measure more up to speed on what was and wasn't food, which when combined with Comariero's knowledge of what made food taste good, brought about a new era in 3-Up Fort. Not only would their fancy mortared walls make it look like a castle from the outside, but the promise of skilled, semi-captive work hands preparing mighty feasts would give it the fleshy feel of castle wonkery on the inside too.
All this is how 2 would-be raiders came to be working for our crew. And the work they did really turned the place around, moving grit from stomachs to cement, smoothing out compacted mud floors with clean pavement, and giving the dogs an exciting variety of otherworldly smells to marvel over. We'll get to know them soon enough as our expanded staff of lost chancers prepare for a new mini-year of not dying on Reticot, which they would of course fail if Reticot had any say in the matter. And Reticot had some real tricks when it came to getting life rolled up, believe you me. It was a mild winter on Reticot in the year 5500, Reticot years that is, being a measure of only some 60 days. A generous winter for a crew living behind decreasingly waterproof wooden panels against the sheer side of a remote mountain. But inside this half-baked colony, fully baked potatoes flowed from the kitchen, and carefully interlocked sandstone tiles spread from corner to corner of each room. This was the work of the newcomers, Comariero and Tumus, both would-be or have-been enemies of the lost colonists. They brought more than their skills to the table. Being from opposite ends of life on Reticot, they had invaluable insight on the ways of the world. A long time ago, after the world was rolled out, the tribes were like a fur upon the land, Comariero explained, over a buffet of steaming mud nuggets garnished with juicy winter berries. In the beginning, the skies gave fire and water, and our ancestors learned how to live in the endless caves and roam the long plains. Then, after 50 generations, the sky was turned away from us. It twisted up and rang out with the flashes of zappers, the ones you call the cosmic people. It was a war that would not end. They took what they could, and we kept what we could. Then we went on 50 generations more. The final era is now upon us, as the rolling mass reverses. Your arrival is the sign. So you ain't never seen any kind of fuzzy place with lights and healing waters? Boy asked. Your holy place. I do not know where it is, or what it is. It's a piece of the Almighty, Lady said. We have to locate all the pieces. That's how suffering is ended. I wonder, if you find this piece, will our lives be ended? No, they will be saved. Saved from suffering. That is the meaning of the roll-up. But suffering is a property not of the mass, but of the people. It does not intend to spare us. No, the Overlord is doing this for us. We just have to help by bringing his light to the final bits. And Boyd says it's here. Lady looked over to Boy, who was deep in thought. Could it be that those old cosmic people, those zappers, that they were crusading too? And they didn't find anything? I would be careful tying yourself to the zappers, Comariero said. They had no higher purpose. They have their legends and visions of the mass, but it is simple and flat. You may have accessed their secrets, but do not let them seep into your mind. There'll be no hope for any of us then. Boy and Lady pondered this miniature sermon as they would any other in the old town hall. Staves wasn't interested unless there was at least a little heresy implied. The vanilla teachings hadn't satisfied him in a long time. Then there was Tumus, stuffing his face with the mud nuggets with finesse that put the huskies around the table to shame. Bloody butternut trotters! This ain't no paste, is it? He eventually said amid the contemplative silence. Space Wonk, are you a zapper? Boy asked. What's a zapper? Like the people who live out there, who came from the cosmos, space as you call it. Erefs and Tets they're called. Erefs will tear you a new one with their ordnance and the whole nut, but Tets would rather pay you off. Not my scene though, is it? Couldn't even get on a trip to Boca. Here I am doing the Outrider junk with a bunch of you butters, and you're clueless. You even getting this? So, you're not a zapper, Boy nodded. Look, I don't know about the world ending. Been here for bloody yonks far as Orbital says. Been up there a while, I reckon. If everyone down here dies, they'll ping one back to the core and have a fresh bunch of you loons on the ground within 50. Could get yourself in stasis somewhere if you want to see it.
Are you trying to talk about the roll-up, Eater? Comariero asked. Nope, that's you. I'm talking about the future. I mean, you clearly don't have the faintest where you're from or where you're going. That's the problem on the rim, isn't it? Tumas, where are you from? Lady asked. I'm from Earth. At least, I spent a few hours there in the start. Or pretty close to it. Obviously you won't find someone from the surface here. Lady gave a blank expression. Alright, that's not obvious, is it? Bits of all kinds, aren't there? Boy concluded, suddenly standing up. The scrape of his chair punctuated the silence that followed. Then there was an echoing groan from outside, the call of the mega sheep. The 4 huskies were straight out the door, and added their barks to the racket. Following them, the crew saw a man with a knife in his hand standing at the entrance to the fort. Bring out the tender's body, and I'll let you go, for now, the man shouted, his voice youthful despite his haggard appearance. The accent revealed his origin, and Comariero stepped forward. The fireman is dead. I am alive. Both things are true, so you can go on your way, penitent, he said. You're him! You've pushed the kote, twist up! Fight me! The man demanded. Comariero shook his head and went back inside. Enraged, the man brandished his knife and charged everyone else. Boy threw his jacket over Lady's head, then jumped forwards with his dagger in hand. Staves looked to Tumas, who looked back. This happens sometimes, Staves explained as the 2 knife fighters slashed and dodged. Yeah? You're not helping them? Need my thunderbolt, but we don't have many tubes. Plus, Boy feels like he isn't very brave since he always lets me kill people, so I think it might be kind to let him do it. Wonk! Boy snarled. But you can help if you want, Staves nodded. Loony badders locks to captains! Tumas exclaimed, which probably meant something. He ran back into the hall, seeing Comariero sitting at the table. You can use mine, Comariero said, pointing at a bow and arrow set in the corner. Virtual game in real life, this place, Tumas said. Probably meant something too. He grabbed the bow, ran outside, and shot an arrow precisely through the center of the attacker's chest. The pause this brought upon the man saw Boy's dagger in his throat, and that was that. A bloodied Boy looked to Tumas. Told you I'd help, Tumas shrugged. Good work, pirate, Boy said, sounding sarcastic. I'd say so. Oh, you think you're next, that it? Calm it. Not saying I'm not grateful, but the weapons aren't for you, mate. Waste then. I know a few things about 'em on account of me old job. And how do we know that you still aren't doing that job, huh? Boy asked as he took quivering Lady by the shoulders and led her away. Orbital's not a place you go back to. They bring you back, or nothing. This was a last straw. I ain't gonna... Is she alright, by the way? She'll be fine, just deal with him, Boy said, nodding towards the corpse. Pfft, new but same as the old, Tumas muttered. The dogs helped him drag the corpse out to the dumping grounds down the mountainside. About halfway it occurred to him that he could just run off and try to find more eaters to link up with. Perhaps that was what Boy was hoping for. But what Lady had said previously was true. He owed these outlander goons his very life. Wasn't very pirate-like to care about a scant debt like that, but maybe Tumas wasn't very pirate-like. With a cloud of dogs dancing around him, he trod back through the frosty grass leading through the tall granite walls. This was in the 2nd week of winter, a winter due to only last 2 weeks. Since it was mild, Boy's tongue-on-the-soil techniques determined that an early sowing would get them 3 harvests from their fields. Therefore it was time to turn over chilly dirt and plunge seeds into mounds of the finest manure the megasheep had to offer. And when it comes to muck plunging, 6 hands are better than 4. Oh, it's real spongy, Tumas said as his fingers tunneled out drill holes for rice seedlings. That's 'cause it's ready. First time in the mud, space wonk, Boy said beside him. Not much of this on Orbital. We have these, like buckets, where you have the electric lights to bring them up. Electric? What? Fine. Blow work. Wait, you can grow things using those fireballs. Somehow, I don't know. People always been trying to grow things by firelight since the beginning. Doesn't work. Boy confidently nodded.
patting his most recent plant child into place. Maybe, but you know, people live on orbital their whole lives, just eating this butternut paste. They're growing butternut squash. Just a figure of speech, butter. Right. Anyway, tell me what you're doing. I want to get into this. You want to get into farming? Or whatever. You know, it's all new to me. Living outside and stuff. Outside's not like this on a core world. No outside to speak of on orbitals, apart from the real shiny get-ups on the main drags. This old stuff, this natural magic, it's kinda relaxing after all that, butter. Never seen food getting pulled out of the ground. Natural magic, bunk to chunk. Heard people did it. No clue what all this crusty stuff here is though. It's mulch. If you haven't heard about mulch, you'll love it, Boy claimed, a reservoir of pent-up farming wisdom bursting from him in the hours to follow. Toomus didn't even think it was beneath him. Not only was he not a pirate, he wasn't even a wonk, it seemed. However, this calm homesteading scene was ruined by the coming of a powerful frost at the start of spring. The chills spared over winter crashed at once along the mountainside. Boy opened his door one morning and let out a pained cry. His fledgling crops were beneath a foot of snow. Seeing Boy digging the snow to try and recover some, the husky dogs did the same, but this was neither helping nor cheering him up. This sudden coming of below zero temperatures was more than just a gardening mishap. Now that the next harvest was pushed back to bits knows when, the reserve of food from the previous year would run out weeks too soon. Luckily, someone knew just what to do. First frost to stall the bloom. The mass curls and stretches and leaves us what we need, if we are not chosen for the Kote already, Comariero explained. Everything clear now? Okay, he was eventually pressed into giving a more detailed plan. The next day he and Staves were crunching their way out into the gleaming woods. Comariero held his hands together and scanned the landscape. Staves used his loaded rifle like a walking stick, being unused to the effort of winter travel. We are close, Comariero whispered, pointing to a bank of rocks covered in sprouting bushes bent out of shape by the weight of the snow. A slight twitching was visible beneath them, shifting snow about. Now, meat man, show me your zapper skills, Comariero nodded. Staves began to dance, but after a brief clarification, he raised the rifle and put a thunderbolt into the pile of twitching snow. Immediately it was thrown about by a squirming boar that disappeared from view. Moving to where it had been, its trail was clear even without the drizzles of blood marking it. Come, the cold weakens their will. It will die before the ground where it lay grows cold, Comariero beckoned. Staves hiked after him as they crossed the rocks in search of their dinner. Are you a noble? Staves asked. Noble? You mean a chief? Maybe. You're hunting. Regular people aren't allowed to hunt. I don't know what you mean. Just things were different in my old home. Ah, yes. You said so before, that you were loved at home. Tell me of your home, meat man. I lived in the castle. It used to be that I had to stay in the stables, and I wasn't allowed to talk. One day the nobleman Griffin saw me and said that I should go up to the halls. Up there I was allowed to talk, but I didn't know what to say. So I sang for them. I did that for years, and when people talked to me, they would say that they loved me. It was just something they said. They never told me what they meant by it, but everyone thought it was important. But I noticed most people didn't get told it at all. What does that mean? There are games one only learns by the fire. If your cave was large enough to keep animals, it probably had many servant caves. When many servant caves work for masters, the masters change. For you, they were allowed to hunt. In the Tranca, we were allowed to grow plants, as your friends are doing here. This must be what your word noble means. To be different, like this. I can tell you, as a noble, that love is something that changes with you. Nobles love the mass to cover the hatred in the eyes of their servants. That is what I saw from beside the fires every day.
If you try to do any different, it creates a great wave of anger that topples you. So that is how it must be. You, Meat Man, were loved by those who had to love for the sake of their very lives. I believe that is why your world seemed so full of love, and now it is like a lake taken by zappers. But you must listen carefully to reality. Love in the wild is real and can go unspoken. It is not what you think. It is a mystery. It is a hunt, and it blends into darkness and light with equal cunning. Understanding this is difficult, but only the beginning. Such is the wisdom of the original tenders that we must carry on into the roll-up. I am glad to have spoken of it again. So, it's okay that no one will say it? Perfectly flat, Meat Man. What should I do if someone does say it now then? That is a lesson I do not think you are ready for. Yet hold your strength, as everyone can learn. That is what the chiefs don't want you to know. Maybe all this made things a little clearer for Staves, or at the very least would reduce the chance of him making things awkward for everyone else. One thing that certainly helped was the haul of meat they brought back from the wilderness over the coming days. The frost had impacted plenty of creatures expecting a warming spring, leaving caches of naturally refrigerated pickings across the mountainside and easy tracking conditions for everything still venturing out. The meat was prepared by Master Butcher Comeriero and turned into some mighty meals, while the leftover rice and mud nuggets were given to the mega sheep, since the snow had ruined their mountainside grazing scene. A few days after it came, the ice retreated and warm air rolled down the mountainside from the north. True spring sprung, and at once Boy, Lady and Tumus were in the fields, replanting all that had been lost. As a consolation prize, the frost had done a lot of weeding for them, so they were able to rapidly sow all of the fort's interior space and even start some large fields outside the walls. Altogether, they were planting 10 times more than the previous year, and growing it even faster thanks to a second year of soil tilling. Within a mere 5 days, the first rice plants were producing their seeds, breaking Boy's own personal best from back home. Suffice to say, the food situation was going to improve rapidly, if only in volume and not variety. While the plants were growing, there were plenty of other projects to be getting on with. Tumus helped Lady lay a front of bricks across all of the wooden walls of the fort's interior, while Comeriero chiseled out fresh bricks with impeccable speed. Staves directed Boy in the construction of better wind catchers to provide more blowwork, which was used to light up the whole interior with glass fireballs, or was stored in hefty batteries, which Staves called heaving chests. You can take a moment to determine what thought process led to this name, but we'll move on to discuss another idea floating around the fort. This was the notion that their so-called flat cave could incorporate some real cave elements. By digging into the mountainside, they could mine out new spaces to store their crud and what have you, and it would require no expansion of the outer walls. Plus, it wouldn't even be visible to passing robbery prospectors. Then again, tunneling into the side of a mountain was a difficult task. Lady had already got the hang of using the Cosmic People picks from the colony kit, put to good use harvesting the rocks used for the bricks. Still, it was tiring work, and the slow process of making a passage through the granite and marble mesa diminished her initial enthusiasm for creating a den under the mountain. They had the right idea though, and artificial cave building was commonplace among the Bokka tribe. Commonplace enough that they happened to have an expert miner with them when the yearly Bokka caravan passed by the fort in the second week of spring. Boy and Lady met with them outside the stone walls. Strangely, a few were dressed in synthetic cloth, like Tumus had been. "You've become like Erefs already," the caravan leader commented, pointing to the walls. "Had some trouble with the locals," Boy said. "You'll be in even more trouble trapped inside there. Working for us so far. Anyway, if it makes you happy, we're gonna try and do things your way." "You will tear them down just because I said so." No, I mean digging stuff. Lady? We want to make a cave in the mountainside, but we aren't really sure how, Lady explained. At this, the caravan leader's face lit up. I have just the thing for you, he excitedly claimed, rushing back to the rest of the group. Lady eagerly expected some kind of miraculous digging technique, some natural magic, as Tumus was calling it, but instead she was presented a tall woman in a thin pink tube of cloth. Her face could be best described as creasy and uneven. Boy used the term monstrous in later descriptions. Her hair was paper thin for the most part, but a wide braided ponytail ran down her back. You can help us? Lady asked. She's for sale, the caravan leader proudly announced. Sale? What do you mean? Lady went on, lowering her brow into a scowl. This high-quality product worked for 10 years on the cave of the Great Spider, but there was a problem, and she was sold on. We've had lots of interest in her, but since you people are looking to become regular customers, I'll give you a discount. You only pay 1 in 10 pieces with her, only 1 in 10. I'm not buying anyone, you're a slaver, Lady shouted, spitting on the ground and taking her leave. Oh, what did she think I was? The leader asked Boy. Boy just shook his head. Then he addressed the slave. Where are you from? He asked. I used to dig for the cores in the belt, but we got cut out by the merger, and I wound up here, she explained. Her voice was buzzy, shrill, piercing, inescapable, rough but slippery. Combined with her unusual face, which might generously be called abstract, Boy felt like he was a brave knight facing down a terrible creature. 1 piece in 10! Or 1 piece in 20! The caravan leader cheered out through a strained smile. You got a home? Boy asked the slave. Never had a home. But you should buy me, Shaky. I can dig out diamonds from a star, she said. While reading her face was like learning a new language, Boy felt like she was in trouble. And back home, he had certainly developed a habit of sympathizing with picked-upon slaves. That's why he soon found himself paying a mere 1 in 30 of her price to relieve the caravan of this cursed miner. Thank you so much, the slave grinned. I promise I'll worship your rolling mass real good, and I can dig you a cave better than anything the Zappers can. We ain't a tribe here, miss, Boy said. We ain't really anything I can explain, but I need you to help my sister. Your sister? Oh, I get it. I've been looking for my sister too. She's on this planet. Hard to keep looking when, you know. You're looking for someone too, then. Everyone has their own crusade, Boy sighed. So, do you want to give me a name? The slave asked. This ain't no slave camp. Take your own damn name. Do a job for me and I'll give you food. But before we go in, there's a whole lot of stuff I gotta explain. We gotta play this carefully. I'll do whatever you want. I'm great with people. Don't worry, I'll fit right in. And quietly. Boy wiped his face with a grubby hand. Inside him there was a battle between his sense of honor as a would-be knight, his buyer's remorse at the woman's abrasive presentation, and most of all the guilt he would face when he explained to Lady that he'd just lined the pockets of a slaver, 1 piece in 30 though it might have been. Perhaps it was all for a good cause. Let's see what this nameless tunnel rat can bring to the table. Crawling thorns, Comeriero gasped. Dragon butternut, Tumus blurted. Hollow bits, Staves marvelled. All of these things were said simultaneously, and they had just about the same meaning. Only Lady said nothing, as Boy brought his newly purchased slave woman into the hall. Hello, the woman buzzed. Another round of exclamations that don't translate well was fired off. Come on, this is serious, Boy tried to argue. Lady stepped forward and removed her mega sheep coat. She pushed it into the woman's hands, then made nodding gestures until the woman put it on. You might think Lady was being nice, but it was actually because the woman's narrow pink dress exposed her shoulders, which was extremely rude back in Tindra. Happily, the woman interpreted it in the more positive light. My name is Taka. Been mining my whole life, far as I remember. If you got a job for me, I won't disappoint ya, Taka claimed. Could you wait outside? Lady asked calmly. Taka was one to treat all suggestions as orders and quickly departed. Then Lady grabbed Boy by both arms. You pitbug, she growled. I have to explain that it's better this way, Boy said. You should have killed them. Or was it all a lie? I ain't never lied to you, lady. You let Dad live all that time. Had no choice, then and now. Don't need a wonk to work that out. I'm sorry. Don't talk to her. Alright. Lady let go of him and marched outside. Comariero and Tumus were eyeing Boy in a what was that all about sort of way that required no translation. While Boy laid out Lady's history with slavery and with the family that institution had created, Lady directed Taka out of earshot of the hall. I don't need to eat that much if that's a problem, Taka ventured. Shut up, Lady snapped. Yes, milady. Not like that. I mean, you're not a slave here. No one is. Your master paid for me though. He's my brother, and he probably didn't buy you. He bought your freedom. You understand? But I have to work. That's how I eat. Free people do that too, when they don't have slaves. That's what it's like here. Can you accept that? Whatever you want, milady. It's just lady. Okay, lady. Dunno if you... Never mind. It'll all be okay, I think. Should I get started? Started on what? You need a cave. That's my job. Yeah, I do. Lady gestured to the mountainside and showed Taka the little tunnel she'd made previously. Taka bounced over to it and grabbed the pick lent against the rocks. She ran a hand over the dugout surface. Marble and granite. Easy! What you need here? She asked. Lady explained her dream of a rocky den away from the clacking and buzzing of the wind catcher outside her room. Taka seemed genuinely moved that the poor colonists didn't have cozy hideaway holes already. It's practically what the Mass is here for, right? She said. The Mass? I don't know much about the Reticot spirits, Lady said. Oh, neither do I. You aren't from Reticot? Nope. From somewhere so far away I don't know where it is anymore. But so similar I can't believe I'm not there. Wow, you sound like a fire tender. I'm just a farmer. I had no idea. Amazing. Her enthusiasm was a mix of her extremely personable nature and the fact that among the tribes farming was seen as a hobby of the elites, if you recall Comariero's prior ramblings on the matter. Still, Lady was further endeared by the undeniably sincere display. Then Boy stomped over, hauling a plastic box of mining tools. Alright, Taka, you're in, he said as the box crashed to the ground. First job, make yourself a place to sleep. You mean I don't have to sleep in one of your rooms there? Taka asked anxiously. No, I'm telling you to make a hole and sleep in that. But if it all works out, it'll get better. So you really aren't going to use me as a slave? Taka grinned, to the extent her irregular face could be read to have traditional expressions. She grabbed a second pick from the box and immediately cracked it against the tunnel face. Does she know... Boy began to Lady, but he and Lady both had to quickly back away as Taka's speed heightened. With a pick in each hand, she crashed through the rock, with backhand and forehand digs scattering rubble with the blue flash of cosmic tool magic. I'll make your den tonight too if I can, lady, she called over her shoulder. By the bits, Boy muttered. I don't need to buy drill bits, I'll carve them myself, Taka shouted. She spoke Erefinglish, by the way, if you want to know how this misunderstanding came about. By the bits, Boy muttered again. She's really nice, Lady said as they walked back to the hall. I ain't gonna say anything, Boy said. Don't give her orders, Boy. Don't need to, do I? Good. Yep. Dunno what cursed her, but digging like that might take us all the way home. Or give us a nice place to hide from this roll-up, huh? Don't think that's how it works. Yeah, well I doubt the locals know either. Bits knows. That's the key. Boy walked away with his faith rock solid, and even the best deep space miner couldn't crack that. Those physical rocks of the mountainside, though, really didn't last long against Tokka's assault. Over the next few days, she disappeared into her tunnel. She was scarcely seen, which suited the others well enough, although it did make it hard to come to trust the newcomer, even for the two only slightly less newcomers. But ultimately, you can't argue with results. 20 by 20 mets. That's like 65 of your yalms, Tokka explained. The rest of the crew marvelled at the chasm she had sculpted. They should have known it would be vast. The pile of rocks she had carted outside was clogging up half the colony. In only a week she had cleared 2 large spaces. First was a long, wide hallway on the left side of the main tunnel, the foundation for Ladies' Den, complete with little storage nooks and thoughtful waist-height shelves. On the right side was a short connecting passage that opened out into a large square chamber with a high ceiling. This was part of Boy's pet project, inspired by Tumus's claims that crops could be grown with blowwork lights indoors. Boy and Comeriero had shared many a scoff at this notion, but Tumus could bring up the cement powder mix-up again and again if he needed to build credibility. While it is impossible, how can I tell my hands that there is no rock before me? Comeriero said. This is belt grinder quality. Who'd you work with before, Butter? Tumus asked Tokka. Well, you know the Redicott Outer Passage Administration. Oh yeah, my prof on Orbital was part of that. There's a prestigious little nut there. You must have pulled a real swipe to get a spot. Thanks. Let's just say they came to me at an early age, you know. Yep, sounds like the racket alright. Nearly done planting outside, Boy said. Guess we really can give this a go. Or, worst comes to worst, we can brick ourselves in here and sit the action out, come the roll-up thing. The mass can roll in here too, Comeriero pointed out, but luckily Boy didn't really know what that meant. He gave Tokka some time off for the next week, but she still kept to the shadows and operated on a speak-when-spoken-to policy. The policy of the Redicott Outer Passage Administration, no doubt. While manic and merciless at the rock face, she was slow, slouching and deliberately elusive at other times. The only exception was when the crew gathered to eat. Then she appeared as smiley and prim as she had on the day of her purchase. No longer sulking or quiet, she had no shortage of nice things to say about her table mates. Delivered in her grating voice, it created a strange therapy of anxiety and relief. Tokka, you're a cosmic person, aren't you? Lady asked on one occasion. I mean, I'm from space. Is that what that means? Tokka asked. They mean like whether you're from a low-end world or not, Tumus explained. These lot don't know the whole picture. Or guess they got their own picture they don't want to spoil and that nut. Well, guess I am a cosmic person, if it helps. Have you ever heard of Pieces? Lady asked. Yep, one of the closer spots. It's close. In the cosmos, you mean? Sure, you got it. It's a short haul. 30 years under the lid and you're there. People don't go there, though. You thinking of it? Lady, after getting a confirmation nod from Boy, filled Tokka in on the origin of the 3 Tindrons. That's amazing, Tokka said. I hope you find this thing, then. Maybe it's in the mountain. I'll dig if you want me to. You've dug us up half a quarry. Let's get through the blocks for now, Boy said, referring to the gradual operation to turn the excavated materials into more bricks. But I need you to tell me something, or you, Space Wonk, and keep it short. All these worlds you talk about, are they all like this one, or like Pieces? No, some are much better. Can't get you a ticket that way, though. You go out of the core, not in, Tokka said. Yeah, what she said, Tumus nodded. Told ya, there's loads of this. Get your head around that. You shouldn't have forgot over there, but that's Rimworlds. You really thought you knew it all? Could this mean that there are even more Pieces? Boy pondered, oblivious to the atheistic nudging Tumus was going for. Wonk, is there anything about this you remember in the books? He added to Staves. If there is a hilocat here, it's part of Pieces. So in the old chapters when it says that the bits were scattered over pieces, it must mean everything, Staves reasoned.
No holy places on orbital, Tumas smirked.
Then how does it stay above us? Staves shot back with a smirk to match.
Tumas had to shrug at that one, so Staves assumed victory.
We ain't got enough time to go to all these worlds and find them all. Impossible, Boy murmured.
Lady shuffled over and put an arm around him.
We just have to do what we were destined to do. Maybe that's where Griffin and the soldiers are. They went to the next stop. They're relying on us here. And I'm relying on you, Boy.
Those final words were the kickstart Boy needed, as usual. But all the dreams of religious questing were rather moot, as they had nowhere to go, no way to get there, and nothing to eat on the way. Once a prosperous farm was established, and they were no longer under siege from violent locals, maybe that would change. The business of that spring and summer was to flesh out Lady's wing of the cave, and by flesh I mean brick. Walls separated the space into bedrooms, and blowwork pipes allowed for plenty of buzzing lights and warm, pipe-mat, everlasting campfires. While the men sans staves filled the larder with fresh harvests of Boy's quick-grow rice, Lady and Tokka developed some cushy bedrooms. They could be best described as prison cells to us, but that standard was well above what either Lady or Tokka had enjoyed in their previous lives. Lady reported that Tokka had displayed the same mysterious cycle of being a cave-dwelling demon in line with her presentation, and being a kind-hearted shoulder reminiscent of the travelling priestess troops on Tindra. A brief disappearance on her part would make the transition from one to the other, and in her monstrous state she was all but useless. And over the week of building in the cave, these downtime periods seemed to be getting longer. Once all the bricks were set in place and beds had been carved out of blocks of wood with cosmic people quills, the greatest crash of all came. Lady and Tokka were standing there admiring their work when Tokka started twitching.
You don't... Sweet pea, you have some, psychite, she stuttered.
I don't understand. What's wrong? Lady asked, but Tokka started stumbling about.
Psychite! I've run out, she moaned,
disappearing into her new room and closing the poorly fitting door. Further indistinct rantings sounded from inside for the few minutes more Lady listened. She went to fetch the others, but by the time they all arrived, Tokka was unconscious in her bed.
Psychite's the fun stuff. I think we've got us a tea head right here, Tumas explained.
It's a forbidden potion, Staves asked with wide eyes.
Forbidden? Nah, just comes at a cost. Your brain. Looks like you've made a defective purchase there, Butter. More so than I thought.
Boy shook his head. She's already done what she needs to do, he said, walking off. I will prepare soothing herbs for her mind. She may be reachable in her dreamland, Comariero offered. He ended up essentially force-feeding Tokka in moments of fleeting consciousness, but her stupor still atrophied her body. Whenever she could talk, she asked for more psychite, but this addictive chemical was a product of industries unfamiliar to the colonists. Besides, it's bad for you anyway. Thus, Tokka scraped the surface of death in a violent withdrawal episode, spending days rebounding between a pained life and manic psychite dreams. She called out an unfamiliar name over and over, and all Comariero could do was stay at her bedside and recite old Tranca healing poems, whether she was listening or not. Outside the cave, things were peaceful. Since Lady had moved into her own room in the cave, Staves knocked through the wall of his hut to combine it with Lady's old one, creating a nice office for himself. Unlike the Staves shed, this place was free of cosmic people detritus. This was because all of it was now being used for something or other, be it to blow cool air through the kitchen sweltering under the summer sun, or to prop up poorly measured dining table legs. Now Staves was just studying the theory, which is a grandiose way of saying he read picture books about how to smelt mud into glass for new blowwork fires. He had made a breakthrough on the topic of blowwork. He realized that a windmill dipped into moving water also produced magical effects,
It was not the blowing that made the work, but movement in general. Still, the name Blowwork was there to stay. In between tending to the crops, Boy and Tumas tried to pick up where Tokka had left off and dig out some more useful spaces inside the walls, with little progress being made. Sometimes Boy would dare ask Tumas about other worlds, but they always sounded beyond belief, to Boy at least. Such was the pattern of summer in 5501 Reticot local era. At summer's end came a final hurrah on the part of the sun. Desert winds from the far north were pushed up against the mountain. It got hot. Real hot. It was more than 50 Celsius outside, and the sheet metal roofs of the colony made every room into a perfect oven. Even the cave became a dank prison of still, wet air. After trying to bear it for an hour or so, everyone found themselves drifting into the larder. The coolers usually kept this storeroom frozen over, but even magical blowwork had its limits. Still, it was keeping it down into the low 20s in there, and hence very soon, our 6 colony buddies were getting comfortable in the fridge, joined by 4 dogs, 2 mega sheep, a few lumpy mammals similar to guinea pigs, several slow shells, a strange yellowish rat, and the carnival of insects that travelled with this bunch. Yes, Staves had been busy cultivating a new stable for himself, but we all do things that remind us of home.
How do people normally deal with stuff like this? Does it happen often? Lady asked.
They do not deal with it, they are rolled up. That is how the mass chooses you, Comariero said. But here, we defy it. I believe the Zappers do this too. This is how they live long after their time. It is easier than I imagined it must be. Overlord tests everyone. Sure they aren't just taking it on with greater faith than you, Boy suggested.
Comariero shrugged.
I have never met this Overlord, so I cannot say.
It spoke to us through the radio, said we have to escape, but we're still here, Staves noted. I wonder if it's trying to kill us to prove us wrong.
We'd die for sure if we left, Boy shot back. Overlord don't respect people who throw their lives away either. Although, now I'm really looking at it.
Boy cast his eyes around the piles of plastic boxes and rough sacks woven from plant stalks that made up the furniture they were lazing on. It had been a very good year for the crops. They already had enough to last until the next summer, with another harvest yet to be brought in. When you looked at it up close, this farm was killing it, and I use that phrase in the sense to mean, in this context, not killing its inhabitants.
We could try and find Missy or something, Boy eventually concluded.
Forget your weird pieces, friends. We need to find some tets and get more freezer units purring, Tumas said.
The tets. They're the Zappers, right?
Comariero nodded to Boy.
If anyone knows of any holy sites, it must be them. They can travel like cosmic people. We have to find out what they're doing here at least.
There wasn't much enthusiasm about this minor call to adventure, but maybe that was just because everyone was trapped in the dark fridge, trying to stop the dogs eating all the potatoes and the bugs eating all their blood. Still, it was a good idea, and we'll return to it shortly. The coming of night made it safe to venture back out, and the next day clouds came to the rescue. Being dragged between hot and cold rooms seems to have had a rather positive effect on Tokka, who was now permanently in her sulking state, but was at least alive and willing to eat unaided. The only nice thing she had to say was about Boy and Tumas's efforts to dig a passage to connect the colony interior to the underground river that ran up its flank. She hissed out bits of advice to help before scurrying back into her lair deep in the rock. A helpful monster. The passage was completed in the coming days, which not only made the walk to get water a little shorter, if more crouched and depressing, but it allowed Staves' blowwork breakthrough to be utilised. By placing a steel wind catcher on its side, the water could be used to push it around just like a mill. The rotation of the main shaft within a bunch of coiled up blowwork pipes produced a steady stream of usable magic, no longer at the whims of the winds. Very nice. Altogether, the summer ended with the colony looking pretty good. They had top-notch fields, plenty of space, had all the cosmic tools set up in the workshop, even if they didn't know what to do with them, and they were all safely behind castle walls, or maybe meters of mountainside. With the exception of Boy's little cave farming project, this homestead was complete, and that means there was more and more time to think about the rest of the doomed world. With base needs attended to comfortably, the grander work of the hilocat crusade demanded attention. It was time for a little trip into the great unknowns of Reticot, safe in the knowledge that nothing could possibly go wrong while they were away. Right?